This meeting is being recorded.
Hey guys, what's up?
Good to meet
Hi.
you. How you doing?
Very, very good to meet you too. What's the wall behind you? It looks like a never-ending wall.
For me or Habs? Uh,
Okay.
it's
It actually it might
okay.
actually be also virtual background to be fair, but then I see the light switches that tell me
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah. It's a quite a nice kind of yeah. It's one of the meeting rooms. They have kind of like a felt kind of background. Quite nice.
It's actually
But the ceiling
disgusting.
is
It's like a furry wall. It's horrible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
We're thinking
horrible.
but it's not
Yeah.
feeling a
it's
bit
not that
for
the ceiling of the room is what, like 6 or 7 meters high, is it?
no, not quite.
No, it's not. Okay. Wow. Okay. It looks from the perspective. Okay. Anyway, I was always worried about where you were trapped, but seems like you're in good shape, so all good. Very, very, very much appreciate you taking the time. Also, the two of you immediately right in the first call. I don't know if you do that always with investors or if it's just the pleasure with me, which is quite nice. But you tell me probably in a second. But yeah, I heard the best things about you, obviously, from Sarah, and would love to get to know you in the next half an hour. That's most important for me. A little bit about who you are as people, what made you who you are, how you know each other, how you came to crazy idea of founding a company, and then also dive a little bit deeper on what you're actually doing with Xylo, I guess is how you pronounce it. Yeah, at the same time, it's also an opportunity for you guys to get to know me and also the fund. So please don't refrain from asking questions. I'm happy to give you a brief intro at the beginning, and then we can also see if we might be worthy for you guys or not. And that's totally fine too.
Cool.
Sounds fair?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Right.
Why don't you go first with the intro then?
I would love to go first. Thank you so much. Yes, briefly on my side, German, unfortunately, 100% potato German, as you can see in here. Also by my accent, I guess. Grew up in a small town close to Frankfurt. Wanted to become a professional football player all of my life. There was no injury. I was simply not good enough, but I made it at least to the youth national team and youth Bundesliga. And then turned my life at the age of 17 back kind of like 180 degrees. Moved to Jerusalem, volunteered there for a year, came back to Germany, studied business and finance, realized I hate it, but I love startups. So I co-founded my first company, then moved on to what I also am passionate about, which is politics, international security in particular. So I worked for a while in the US, in Washington, and in London, mainly with NATO and a couple of defense ministries. So perfectly also with the not so much with the exact same customer type, but with governments, in fact, not so much with local, but actual the defense ministries in particular I was working with. So I got to understand that this is a certain breed of people. Yeah, finally moved on back to see diplomacy in action and in practice. Lived another 2 years in Tel Aviv and slided there into venture capital. So I joined an early stage fund there and came back to Germany a little bit more than 3 years ago to help build up the fund. We have quite a unique setup for three reasons. I don't know if Sarah told you. The first is that all of our LPs are founders. We raised 220 million from 250 individuals who are all angels or founders, entrepreneurs in general. And we were able to do that simply because all of my six founding partners are also founders who built big companies before, had pretty large exits, and then angel invested for the past 15 years. Luckily enough, hitting about 20 unicorns. So they were the first checks in Palantir, in Adyen, GitHub, Revolut, you name it. Given the success, we said, okay, let's make it more institutional, but continue being like entrepreneurial angels. And kind of like the investors we would have wished for as founders. And this is how we operate and work. Very lean in our process of investing, but also working with founders in the portfolio. We do pre-seed seed investments, generalist, worldwide. We don't care if we lead, follow, co-lead. We can do it all. Check sizes range from 500K up to 2.5 million. Also here, quite flexible. And in general, I think two value props that we would subscribe to is first is founder mindset. Having been in the trenches, knowing that there will be a lot of shit hitting the fan. It's really good to be supportive and understandable. So we want to be more like partners on eye to eye level. And the second is basically the network. I think we can open any door in Europe to whoever you would like us to open the door to. And that's because of our IP base. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. I think it's already sufficiently interesting. I hope.
No, very. I love the part about being the investors that you would have hoped for having when you were founders. That's great. Thanks, Julian, for the intro. So I'm Habs, one of the co-founders at Xylo, and we're building the next era of government software. I focus on product and operations. I was a sculptor where I learned to code electronics and then moved into 7 years as a software engineer in mostly regulated tech startups. I set up the front-end team at the InsurTech Cytora that recently exited, also early engineered the InsurTech unicorn Marshmallow, also built and led a 20-person product and engineering team, then got the itch to do my own thing. So about a year ago, I did Entrepreneur First, and I got bored really, really quickly. It was everyone just building AI agents for X, basically just like a fucking conveyor belt of copycat companies. So I went, crying, complaining to my friend Harry, who's the CTO of a company called Jensen, who introduced me to Dermot, who had led their seed round. So it's almost our 1-year anniversary, actually. But we had a very ridiculous first week of working together, where by day 2, we had managed to blag a meeting with the Prime Minister's special advisor inside number 10. So by day 1, we came up with a company, registered it, and we balled in acting like we've been doing this for a very long time. They backed us on the spot, and we were just so much more depressed than we were going in, because we realized that nothing is being done inside of the building and there could not be anything more important that we could be building. And since then, it's been an absolutely crazy 1 year. But Dermot, I'll hand over to you.
Great. Really good to meet you, Julian. So I'm Habs' co-founder. I focus on the commercial and compliance side of the business. Really interesting. Me and Habs come from different backgrounds. Me from Ireland, Habs from Korea, but we ultimately came at this from ended up in the same position of sick and tired of waiting for governments to change, which I'm sure you can relate to as well. In terms of my background, spent the first 6 years of my career as a lawyer in the city here in London for working for 2 global international law firms, Hogan Lovells and Orrick. Had that itch, but also always just viewed tech as a lever for progress and wanted to get closer to the action. So I joined an entrepreneurial family office, helped them spin out a micro VC fund, turned that into a $30 million institutional fund. I led their biggest breakout success, a company called Jensen, now heavily backed by A16Z and a unicorn. Still wanted to get closer to the action, so joined another portfolio company, a data infrastructure company, helped turn them around, get them to their first $1 million of revenue, but really led to that point of what's next? How can I leave my mark in the world? And what can I bring to the table? What do I care about? And also what skills do I have to bring? And met Habs around that time and talking about our own personal experiences and how that related to planning and local government, and really not fucking wanting to touch building a prop tech business, but like what does excite us of actually looking at all of the problems we see across economy, society at large, and realizing they're downstream of government, and realizing there's a real generational opportunity to transform governments, starting with local government. So that's really at the heart of what we're building at Xylo.
Cool. Perhaps, given both of you also have quite different, I would say, backgrounds, what do you value about Dermot being your co-founder?
Yeah, good question. It's funny. I actually met Dermot in a crazy 1-month period where I went on 54 co-founder dates. So definitely met him in the thick of it. For me, I am quite a fiery Korean. So I value honesty and like being able to have conflict. I think Dermot, safe to say, because he was a lawyer, is very comfortable in conflict. And I think because we're completely unfiltered and able to have really honest conversations that can get diffused really, really quickly, I think that's so valuable, because it just means that as co-founders, we're always on the same page and nothing is hidden. Dermot actually hates me telling this to people, but I always tell people that both of us have had couples therapy with our romantic partners, which has definitely helped from day one, having really, really good communication, which I think is so important.
And very briefly also, where do you see his let's say room for improvement?
Pardon?
His room for improvement as a founder.
Dermot is very, very optimistic. So often the thing that is very different between us is I am very, very much a pessimist and Dermot is very optimistic. And so I think for us, it's always finding the level ground between both our very different opinions. But to be honest, I think that's like such a big strength for us, because it means across our team, we've covered basically every possible risk there is.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And then another follow-up question to both of you, though. I'm trying to understand. I mean, given your background, it's not immediately clear to me why you're the best positioned team for a GovTech business and also selling to this customer group. What would you reply to me?
Yeah, I can start with this. And would you like me to share more on like what makes Habs amazing first, or would you like to just talk more broadly about?
No, actually not.
Okay, great. So in terms of what we bring to the table, you can think about this, what we're building as legal AI for governments in many ways. The area that planning fits into and where we start is like regulatory services. So planning, building control, licensing, environmental health. There's some application, it falls under a legal framework that needs to follow certain requirements. You enrich it with data, you make a decision. That's all very similar. This makes this very scalable, actually. And to build the right product, to understand the workflow depths, get the context, there's a whole bunch of factors to that. So on the sales process, my legal background really helps to just defuse the conversations. Local governments are very risk averse. So I can lead with some of the compliance pieces. Once they hear I'm a lawyer, they completely relax. Oh, great, you get this. You get the AI stuff, you get the compliance stuff. They send us all of these things to fill out so we can really compress sales cycles. And then secondly, on the product side, and to talk about myself, first off, I can read the policy documents. I understand the legal frameworks. I've seen other friends and former colleagues who've like tested around or built legal AI startups. So I can actually, there's a lot of common patterns we can borrow and feeding into that. So I've become our in-house domain expert on this. The other side is like what Habs is fantastic at, on top of being just relentless and that like just driving force that keeps the business moving forward at 100 miles an hour, is her ability to win trusts with various different levels of stakeholders, from senior stakeholders to users on the ground, and actually really a broad mix of users. And that just means that we've gone from people going on and naturally thinking, is this going to steal our jobs, to them emailing us at 10 p.m. saying, have you thought about this? I have this really cool idea. This will save me so much time. And they're asking us to automate more and more of what they do so they can focus on the more exciting stuff. So I think really we have a really interesting mix of, we get the product, we get the sales, but also we're building up the relationships to drive real ROI in our pilots, which obviously helps with our future customer acquisitions and everything else in between.
Cool. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what you're actually doing. And first, maybe setting the stage with the problem, which I'm familiar with, but I'm still trying to understand, obviously. Why are, in your opinion, governments still the, let's say, one of the most underserved software markets out there? What do you see as the core reasons for that?
Yeah, I can start on that. They traditionally have built versus bought, and if they're looking at technology, and secondly, they have traditionally just hired their way. Governments have typically just had headcounts that grow and grow. They had no real incentive or desire to spend on technology. What's really changed, and you're seeing that particularly in the local government side, is there's a staffing crisis that's been mounting over the last 10 years. People are retiring. People who go to local government, there's less people entering at the younger stages. And secondly, those that are more educated, like in planning or otherwise, are just fleeing to the private sector. So we're actually seeing a real bottom-up pull from these local governments, realizing, oh, we need to fix these problems. And we realize technology is the only way to do so. And I guess looking at the history of the space, it's quite interesting. They started on paper. They moved to these 1990s database systems, which is at the heart of a lot of their current admin burden. They're spending half their day feeding the beast. They're now realizing, okay, they don't really change software providers very often, but they do understand when the tides are shifting. And then the next era is AI native. So we're already seeing that AI is at the top of the agenda for local governments. They're very practical. They're realizing this is the next stage, and now they're investing into it. So we're catching them at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I see that also like top down, you know, from like the highest level, everyone is talking about that. I think in the UK it's pretty much the same like in Germany or in France or whatever. The problem I think is more like on the actual users, right? Down there when I'm talking about, you know, the mid-year-old lady or gentleman actually then implementing and using the AI. Are they willing? Are they able? Are they open to? What's your first findings also from on the ground?
Oh my God, Julian, when we started our pilot with Leeds City Council, half of the officers in our pilot group had been at the council for over 30 years.
Yeah, probably.
I literally thought, like, we are fucked. Like, how are we going to get these people to use modern software, let alone AI? They've actually become our biggest champions. So people that have been planning officers for basically 2, 3 decades, they're the people who back in the day would actually review planning applications with paper, and so that they'd have scrolls of plans. But they actually used to have a cute lady called Elaine, and Elaine would do all of their admin for them. And then this legacy software came in, and then they had to start doing the admin themselves. So they love Xylo because they now see it as, okay, Xylo's doing everything that Elaine used to do. And so they've actually become our biggest champions, which has definitely been, for me, the most surprising thing that I've learned through the pilot with Leeds.
What's their personal driver?
Pardon?
What's their personal driver? Like, what's their
Right.
incentive?
The incentive for them is planning officers are highly educated people. They have very big egos. They came in to do this job where everyone talks about how much planning is respected. Instead, they spend 4 to 5 hours a day copy and pasting and doing admin. So for them, they're actually getting to do the job that they want to do rather than their expertise being wasted on copy and pasting.
Understood. Okay, now maybe we get a little bit closer to that. I'm happy that we were able to set the stage. Tell me a little bit like about these planning officers. I'm trying to understand, how they work, what's the day-to-day jobs, and how you fit in there.
Yeah, sure. Julian, can I get you to imagine that you're a planning officer at a local
Please do
authority?
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have the final say in
Probably
everything.
my name is then Harry and not Julian.
We like to go by Bert. That's usually our
Bert.
yeah. So Julian, you have the final say in everything that gets built in your area. So you are the bottleneck to billions and billions of pounds of development. So your inbox is being flooded every day, phones ringing off the hook with angry applicants because you're behind on every single planning application. You have like 40 to 60 applications at one time and you're overdue on all of them. And you're under incredible amounts of pressure to basically get these decisions out on time. The reality is you're actually spending half your day on admin. So you're copy and pasting across 10 different systems, feeding software from the 90s, and you're emailing files to yourself just to be able to view them. I mean, it's absolutely fucked. So instead, with our products, now you just open Xylo, so everything you need to review a single application is all in one place. So the research is done for you, the analysis is automated, and 90% of the report is pre-populated. So all you do now is go in, look at what Xylo's generated, review it, apply your judgment, and you move on to the next one. So you now save a day a week to actually put back into making other decisions and clearing the backlog.
Interesting. But you mentioned it's only your wedge in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can I think of you guys 2, 3 years from now then? How will you evolve?
Yeah, I can start on a higher level and we can just get deeper into it. But yeah, the bigger picture is every government service focusing on local governments is powered by Xylo, and that just gets more and more automated, more and more end to end as we build up that trust and that context, and particularly as we move into the next areas that are a lot simpler. Really, human judgment and actually kind of oversight is only required where it's absolutely needed. But to get in the door in the first place, starting with planning, we need to build up the trust. And in local governments, it's the same in the UK as the US, and actually most places, planning tends to have the most educated and have the most complex workflows. Typically, it is a more discretionary judgment involved. It's not as straightforward and a lot more exceptions. So by proving that we can automate this, we just get airtime with the most senior people. Already, the CEO of Leeds is kind of giving us thumbs up and is really excited by all of the kind of the great data we've been getting recently. So it's kind of gets super high profile really quickly, despite not being the biggest department. So that's how planning helps. The second is it just falls into the broader remit, as I said, of regulatory services. So really where this goes is end to end, we're transforming every service area with a suite of products. So you can think about it as a citizen, whether you're a business or a general kind of Julian's making a planning application or you have a request from your local government, when you interact or your agents interact with government services, it's going to be so much more streamlined. You get decisions in days. That data flows into our workflows, what we're handling after that. That's completely streamlined, automated, and we become the system of record at the back end. So we're doing that across UK, the US next, and eventually Europe and everywhere else. Basically, that's the kind of the bigger picture where we go.
Okay, understood. But initially, you're a workflow, or you're embedded into a system of records. You're not a system of record yourself, right?
Exactly. We sit alongside the system of record initially.
How much percentage, so to say, of your workflow are embedded into the system of records versus, let's say, used as a layer on top of it?
So right now we sit alongside the system of record and all of the 10 plus point solutions that they currently use. And our data in terms of integrations doesn't come directly from the back office. It comes from, number one, publicly available data because it's statutory public workflows. They have to publish data on public planning applications online. The second is local data, so geospatial data from the specific organization, so the city council report templates, consultee codes. And the third is actually Outlook. So Outlook is actually the source of truth, but Outlook is not connected to the back office. So they're constantly feeding and pushing information into the back office system. So for us, we start with the back end workflows, and then we think by Q1 next year, we'll reach data parity and we'll be able to actually replace the system of record, which, by the way, all of these local governments that we're speaking to, they're desperate. They always talk about how they're trapped in these legacy systems and they're desperate to get out of them. So we give them a way out really easily by eventually being able to do that migration instead of it taking 3 to 4 years, which is the case right now. We give them minimal disruption.
Can I think of you as a productivity duo?
Initially, yes. I mean, like we start off by boosting capacity, and that is part of the initial sales point. So one of our hacks in our go-to-market is we're tapping existing budgets that have unfilled headcount. Because of that attrition in staff, they budgeted for 70 people. They actually only have 60 people on the books. The staff are feeling the pain. We give them, for example, with Leeds, we give them a 12 full-time employee capacity boost for the cost of one senior officer. So that's the initial sales point, but actually where we get a deeper buy-in, as we go in the door, they see our vision to transform whole services. And so they are yes, to automate more and more, and they also want us to work in additional service areas.
Help me also understand, let's say ServiceNow, and I don't know ServiceNow too much in concrete, but ServiceNow, other incumbents, but also, let's say, I don't know, new competitors, and you tell me also who you see there. Introducing similar AI features, why would you still win?
Yeah, so we actually learn from every single action that the officer takes, and it feeds back into our evals. So over time, we're building.
So it's a data flywheel.
Yeah, exactly. And so the more trust we get, more access, better context, and and it enables us to actually automate small applications end to end. And that's why we're starting with the back end workflows where the actual work is done. And we think that gives us stickiness alongside the trust that we're building with authentic relationships with the governments.
But technically, what would happen if ServiceNow is introducing the same feature?
I think what we've seen is that players, I'm sure they're going to bring in a whole bunch of AI features, right? They have to, like all the existing bigger CRMs, even Salesforce, right? But what we've seen happen in local government is they just have a whole different way of buying, and also in terms of the platforms they use. So actually the incumbent platforms are much more domain specific. So Tyler Tech and Excel in the US, in the UK, it's Civica and iDocs. ServiceNow and the likes of them haven't really been involved as much. I think that may be just because of the existing setups, the way they're built. And also they actually, part of the sales point is they want to actually have people who have tailored their system to their domain. And actually us building this from scratch, we can actually tailor for each domain really quickly using what we built, because actually the core platform itself is really scalable. What changes is the domain context.
Interesting. Okay. I also read that you have closed UK's second largest local government council. First of all, props on that. How did you do that? And also tell me a little bit about what's behind.
Yeah, so when we started off last year and we deliberately did this, we didn't start off building. We're outsiders. We can build great products, great AI and software products, but we really wanted to understand the domain and the problem. So we did a whole bunch of research and built up a name for ourselves by becoming a big fish in a small pond of UK local government. We started doing, and so we mapped out the 100 busiest authorities in the country. And so we started working with a few medium-sized London authorities, and through these connections, we got introduced to Leeds. They were really excited by what we're doing and our vision. And as soon as we met them in June last summer, we closed the pilot with them in a month before we'd written a product, before we'd even wrote a line of code. And so for them, we moved into some shadowing and interviews. We aligned on our product roadmap, and then our pilot started in mid-October. And so we've got our case study results from Leeds at the start of February. So it's all kind of moved really quickly from understanding the high-level problems, validating them, moving forward, basically.
Sounds like it. What about the other local governments you were in conversations with? Why did they not convert?
They were ready to move forward. They just actually weren't the right fit. I mean, Leeds moved quicker essentially. So we created a little bit of competitive process of who was ready to move quickest, and also, frankly, Leeds was bigger, so we wanted to work with Leeds, so we had to prioritize. We did at one point even consider running 3 parallel pilots. We realized that's nonsense. We need to focus. So yeah, we just realized Leeds is the biggest in our pipeline, and if it works for Leeds, it's for almost everyone else. And they were moving quicker as well.
How many are there in UK? Just for me to get a feeling.
Yeah, there's 337 local planning authorities, and then yeah, of course, they have all the other functions that we will tackle as well.
And you monetize by just like a software solution?
Yeah,
SaaS?
so it's all annual contracts paid up front. That fits their buying motion
Cool.
because they hate
Yeah.
seats, lots of admin for them. So it's
Yeah,
based on
imagine.
volume and time saved.
And in terms of the selling process, like, how much service is necessary? How much education also of these kind of, let's say, bureaucrats?
Very little actually up front. Is actually much more streamlined. Our integration times are down to 2 weeks. In terms of the sales process itself, we go in via the head of digital or the head of planning. So they understand their high level problems, speed, and being a massive one, as well as the admin burden and then their staffing crisis. So us having a
Cool.
product that boosts their capacity, meet their buyer. Next step is we meet their head of IT. We have what we call our compliance in a box process. So we actually have templates for all of the compliance pieces they need. We can move through that very quickly and then into, contract and testing.
Interesting. Very cool. I mean, first of all, I really like what you're doing. I think it's super interesting. Obviously, for me also as European investor, it's interesting to get a feeling for how you will expand eventually, and what you know about other markets. How do you think of that geographic, let's say, expansion, and what would be the first country?
The US will be next. It has the most directly similar problems and also the clearest product expansion for us as well. So US local governments, similar admin burden, similar staffing crisis, people retiring, people fleeing to the private sector. Interestingly, what we've built in the UK with our initial planning product maps to the most complex developments in the US called Plan Review. So that's a more discretionary system, but most of it's zonal and more objective, which we already suit. The next service that we'll tackle in the UK in Q4 this year is called Building Control. That also is similar to what they call permits in the US. So we'll actually have a full service for planning and permits. So it gives us an opportunity to tackle these problems end to end for local governments, give a really unique solution in the market, which currently consists of old school incumbents or just a few point solutions dotted around. So that's our entry point into the US, planning and permitting, and using that to expand across all of the other areas in local government too.
Big plans ahead. I love that. Flip to the UK. We've done a couple of times with our portfolio companies. Very exciting times. I'm also in the process of doing it exactly now, but definitely easier said than done. So you're raising 2 to 3 million pre-seed, I understood. How far advanced are you in the process, and what are you looking for in an investor?
Yeah, so we're just this is our third week, having some later stage conversations with a few great funds, and we've just got introduced to another few great funds who are early in the process. For us, we're aiming to push everyone forward as quickly as possible in the next couple of weeks. What we're looking for are partners as ambitious and brave as we are to build what we know is going to be a category defining company. And the partners we're onboarding are those that have seen what great looks like, can sharpen our thinking, can make it more likely that we get there quicker, and make it a bigger outcome as well.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool, guys. Like it a lot. In terms of next steps, I will bring it into the team. Kind of like test the waters in terms of appetites, feedback, questions. I will get back to you. We will schedule a second call, or I come back first with additional questions via email. If there's anything to review, please send it my way. Data room, any other materials. I would really love to understand the market a little bit better, I think, first and foremost, and also an understanding of your financial progression for in the next few years. Of course, I'm aware it's pre-seed, nothing needs to be polished, just for me to get an understanding, in terms of ACV size, market size, etc., how you become an interestingly or sufficiently big company. That would be helpful. Other than that, I'm available 24/7. You can always reach me. If you have questions, please go ahead. Yeah, that's it.
Cool, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll get back to you by the end of today with those materials.
Yeah, and just
Fantastic.
to be super clear, we've been pretty constructive with the investors in our pipeline in terms of what's most useful for them. So do you want to share over email of like the 4 or 5 things you'd love or be most helpful, and we can just pull that together and get it back to you pretty quick.
Let's do it. Amazing. Love that. Cool.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jim.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Cheers.